Appreciate y'all for tapping back in. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because today's video is one I've been waiting to drop. We're taking a real close look at the Pestilence build, but not just in solo play. Today we're running it in full team coordination, and I want to show how dangerous this build becomes when it's used properly in group fights, especially in the Dark Zone. Now most of you already know how I get down. You've seen the clips, players literally running away mid-fight, trying their hardest to avoid engagement, diving behind cover, and still getting melted. And that's what I love about this build. Pestilence doesn't let you run, it doesn't give you breathing room. Once that damage over time kicks in, you're on a clock, and most of these players can't handle that kind of pressure. In this video, I really wanted to break down how this build performs against one of the most common and annoying meta builds we see in the DZ, those full bighorn armor regen tanks. You've seen them. Full blues, stacked armor regen, sitting in cover, waiting for their bar to refill, thinking they're unkillable. But Pestilence? It absolutely exposes that playstyle. The second that dot gets applied, those regen numbers don't mean anything. You can be hiding behind a truck, a wall, behind a checkpoint. You're still bleeding. You'll notice in these clips that a lot of those tanky players immediately change builds, or even log off mid-session, because they realize this setup completely counters their one-trick defense. Pestilence eats through their health, and by the time they realize it, it's too late. Now, I'm not here to trash anyone who plays tank builds. Play the game how you want. But let's be real. A lot of players running those setups do it because they want to stay alive, not because they want to win fights. There's a difference. And this build right here takes that false sense of security away. But it doesn't stop there. Let's talk about another big build in the DZ that's been giving folks a tough time. Striker paired with Chatterbox. That setup is deadly in the hands of a good player. If you let someone stack up with Chatterbox and you're within 10 feet of them, it's lights out if you're not built to handle pressure. Striker's ramping damage and Chatterbox's speed make it a nightmare up close. I've lost to it. I've seen others get shredded by it. It's legit. But here's the thing, and this is something I want you to watch closely in the footage. A good build in the hands of a bad player is still a bad fight. In this gameplay, you'll see players running Striker plus Chatterbox who just don't know how to position, don't know when to push, and don't know how to handle someone applying steady diot. That's the key. Pestilence doesn't need stacks, it doesn't need crits, it just needs contact. I don't need to outgun you in 3 seconds, I just need to tap you and keep the pressure on. And against low to mid-tier players who rely purely on their build to do the work for them, that pressure is enough to break them every single time. Now let me be completely honest with y'all, because you know I keep it real over here. The players in this video, they're not comp level PvPers. This isn't a sweat lobby. These aren't clan leaders or DZ legends we're dealing with. These are players who do everything they can to avoid the fight. They sprint, they hide. They're more worried about not dying than actually playing the game. And that's exactly why I chose this footage. I want people to see the difference between build-dependent players and people who know how to fight. The DZ is full of players who only show up to survive, and when you pressure them, when you make them uncomfortable, when they realize running isn't an option anymore, they fold. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can make any build look top tier if you're farming these kinds of lobbies. You could throw on a 4 yellow DPS build with 0 protection and still go on a streak if nobody's pushing you. But the Pestilence build, even when it's not a fair fight, it teaches players how to fight better. It punishes passiveness. It rewards momentum. And most importantly, it reminds players that no matter how safe you think you're playing, you're never truly safe. This is why I rock with Pestilence. Not just because it does damage, but because it changes how fights play out. You force people to make decisions. You create mistakes just by existing on the battlefield. That's the kind of pressure no meta build can fully counter if they're not ready. Now I'll be showing some upcoming gameplay soon against stronger opponents. Teams that push, rotate, coordinate. I want to give this build the ultimate test. But for now, enjoy this session for what it is, a perfect example of how to dismantle players who rely too much on comfort and not enough on skill. If you're a new player or just returning to the game, I highly recommend giving this build a shot. Start solo, then run it with a squad. You'll see immediately how it shifts the pace of the match. You'll start noticing players backing off quicker, switching loadouts more often, or even avoiding zones you're active in. And if you're already rocking Pestilence and have your own tweaks, different gear, exotics, synergy setups, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're building around it and what you've been seeing out there in the DZ. Let's trade strategies. Iron sharpens iron. Also, if you're enjoying this type of content, gameplay breakdowns, raw PvP sessions, honest commentary, go ahead and hit that like button, leave a comment, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. After dominating servers like the one you're watching right now, something funny starts to happen. And honestly, if you've been playing PvP long enough, you already know where I'm going with this. The copycats show up. You'll start noticing players, sometimes even full squads, suddenly switching their builds mid-session, and what do they switch to? That's right, your build. The same build they just got destroyed by, the same one they couldn't counter. Now they're hoping they can throw it on and magically start winning fights. It's like they think the build itself holds some secret power that will carry them without effort. But what they fail to realize, and what always exposes them, is you can't copy skill. You can't duplicate awareness. And just throwing on the same gear doesn't mean you're going to get the same results. There's a big difference between wearing the build and actually playing the build. See, I've tested this Pestilence build in every situation. I know how to engage, when to apply pressure, how to rotate when needed, and when to fall back to maximize the dot. It's not just about stats, it's about rhythm. And rhythm is something these mimickers don't have. They just copy the look, load in, and think they're suddenly PvP gods. But the moment things get chaotic, they fold. Because they didn't build this setup with intention. They built it out of desperation. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice something else. They're never really confident in what they're doing. Their gameplay gets real nervous. They don't push right. They don't support their teammates. They just run around hoping Pestilence will do all the work. But that's not how it functions. It's not a crutch. It's a weapon. And in the hands of someone who knows how to use it, it's devastating. But in the hands of someone who's scared to commit, it's just a ticking timer to another respawn screen. Now let's talk about this war clan we ran through in this session. I've seen them before, maybe you have too, loud in the chat. Always talking like they run the DZ. But when it's time to show up, it's a different story. They've got good gear on paper, sure, but they clearly don't understand how to build with purpose. They just slap on the latest YouTube meta, stack armor or crits, and hope it works. But when we pulled up, it didn't. What you're witnessing here is full-blown exposure. These players don't know how to adapt. They don't know how to counter pressure. The Pestilence build hits them, and they panic. You can see it in the way they disengage. You can see it in the way they scatter. And that's why this build breaks more than armor. It breaks composure. It makes you second-guess your setup. It forces you to rethink your positioning. That pressure? That's what separates real PvP players from copy-paste artists. And that's when things start to get weird. When these players get embarrassed and they've run out of excuses, out of loadouts, out of lives, they get emotional. They start sending DMs, throwing shade, blaming lag, blaming teams, blaming glitches. Some of them go full conspiracy mode. That's when you know you've made an impact. That's when you know your gameplay didn't just beat them physically, it beat them mentally. It's a beautiful thing. Let's be honest though, some players, after a beatdown like this, do try to grow from it. They'll go into their stash, rework their pieces, try new stats, test different combos. And I respect that, I really do. But most of the time, they just try to copy the same build again, thinking maybe this time it'll work. And spoiler alert, it doesn't. Because they're trying to shortcut the grind, shortcut the understanding. But PvP doesn't work like that. The best builds are earned, not borrowed. And Pestilence? This build isn't for the faint-hearted. It's not for the passive. It's not for the players who want to play hide and heal all day. This build is for players who want to make enemies uncomfortable from the jump. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players who want to say, if you run, I'm still killing you. For players w If you hide, I'm still damaging you. If you stack Regen, I'm still burning through it. That's what Pestilence is. It's a statement. And that's why so many of these meta players don't know how to handle it. They're not used to being hunted. And after what we did to them today, you already know they're heading to the loadout screen confused, frustrated, and trying to figure out what just happened. Some will log off, some will switch to another safe meta, some might even try to queue up on a different server to avoid us. But one thing's for sure, they won't forget this build. And for anyone watching this thinking about trying the Pestilence setup, do it. But don't just copy it. Learn it. Master it. Understand how and why it works. Because once you do, you won't just win fights. You'll start controlling entire lobbies. And that right there is what separates us from everyone else. Hey, I just want to take a second and say thank you to everyone who's still watching and listening. Seriously, I appreciate you rocking with me through the gameplay. It means a lot, and I hope you're picking up some valuable tips along the way. Now, before we go any further, let's take a moment to break down how the Pestilence Exotic LMG actually works. Because I know a lot of people use it, but not everyone really understands it. Pestilence is a damage over time dope monster. Every time you hit a target, you're stacking a debuff called Plague of the Outcasts. Once you land enough shots and the enemy goes down, whether you or someone else gets the final blow, those stacks transfer to the nearest enemy within 25 meters. That means if you're smart with positioning and focus fire, you can chain damage between enemies without even looking at them. It punishes people for grouping up and makes hiding behind cover feel useless. It's not just a gun, it's a psychological weapon. People panic once they realize their armor is ticking down, and they don't even know where it's coming from. So when you're watching these players drop one after another, a big part of it is that Pestilence is doing silent work behind the scenes. They think they're safe. They think they're regenerating. But by the time they try to rotate, it's too late. They're melting, and they don't even realize what hit them. That's the beauty of this weapon. It's not flashy, but it's deadly in the right hands. And when paired with a team that knows how to push and pressure, it becomes absolutely overwhelming. Now let's talk about spawn trapping for a second. I know it's a hot topic in the community. Some people love it, some people complain about it, but let's be honest, it's not that hard to do when the opposing team has no awareness, no coordination, and refuses to adjust their strategy. What you're seeing in this video, it's not us being toxic, it's us returning the favor. The same players we're spawn trapping right now have done the exact same thing to other squads, to newer players, to unorganized teams. So don't get it twisted. This isn't just some random pub stomp. This is karma. This is payback. And this is what happens when a squad comes in organized and ready to apply pressure from the first second to the last. Now, if you're enjoying the gameplay, and I'm sure you are, don't forget to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and share this video with someone else who loves the Division 2 PvP. It helps the channel grow, and it lets me keep bringing more content like this your way. Whether it's gameplay, build guides, or breakdowns, I've got more coming, and I want you all along for the ride. Also, if you're curious about the full Pestilence build I'm using in this video, with the armor stats, gear pieces, and perks, make sure to check out the link in the description. I've got the full breakdown there, and I walk through exactly why it works, and how to make it effective in different PvP situations. And if you're still in the mood for some action, don't go anywhere. The Dark Zone gameplay is going to keep rolling. You'll see more fights, more pressure, and a few more examples of how this build handles everything from regen tanks to rogue teams who thought they were safe. Once again, thank you all for hanging out today. I hope you learned a lot, I hope you were entertained, and most of all, I hope this inspires you to step your game up and have some fun experimenting with builds of your own. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.